For centuries, capitalist societies have been guided by an accumulation mindset, the belief that success means constant growth, wealth, and material expansion. This mindset assumes that individual or corporate enrichment eventually benefits everyone through a trickle-down effect. Historically, accumulation has often come through dispossession rather than creation, from colonial expropriation to modern privatization, transferring resources from the many to the few. Today, inequality is higher than ever. Even the logic of accumulation remains deeply ingrained in society. The problem is not just economic, but ideological. It reduces human flourishing to individual gain and material success. And in a world facing ecological limits and rising inequality, this mindset is no longer sustainable. The challenge now is to imagine an alternative mindset, one that's grounded in sustainability, cooperation, and shared well-being. This means recognizing that the Earth is not a resource to exploit, but a living system with intrinsic value. Change doesn't come this easy though. Habits of consumption, institutions, and growth-oriented leadership make it difficult to move beyond the accumulation paradigm. Real transformation will require more than new policies. It demands a cultural and cognitive shift towards redistribution, balance, and care for both people and the planet.
From histories of colonialism to industrialization, today's systems are rooted in extractive models for accumulation. The system is created to benefit a few. In recent news, there are talks of the first ever trillionaire on Earth, while 44% of the world's population lives on less than $6.85 a day. A figure which already sounds alarming on its own, but even more concerning when we hear that in 2024, Sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 16% of the world's population, but 67% of the people living in extreme poverty. This imbalance is a result of systems designed for accumulation, but mindsets of redistribution offer a different logic. Across history, many thinkers have challenged this paradigm. Karl Marx exposed how ownership structures can concentrate power. Indigenous philosophies centered reciprocity and relational balance. Kate Raworth reimagined modern economics through donut economics, where thriving means we live with our social and planetary boundaries. Kate Raworth challenges us to ask ourselves, who owns and controls the sources of wealth, whether it be housing, land, businesses, and how are they managed? How may we design economies to ensure that no one is falling short on life's essentials while staying within the planetary limit? Long before modern theories, indigenous worldviews have long practiced redistribution as a form of relationship, sharing wealth, time, energy for collective well-being. The Sotolo gift economy of the Coast Salish is an example. If you look around, you may also see redistributive models in worker cooperatives. Cooperatives are a big part of the global economy, employing around 10% of the global workforce. As of 2020, around $2 trillion would flow through their doors every year. As Virginie Perroton's research shows, these employee-owned firms are often more productive and resilient than conventional ones, sharing profits in a fair manner and keeping wealth within communities.
The old mindset treated value as something to accumulate. The richer, the better. But psychology shows we don't drive through competition, but we drive through connection. So redistribution begins with a different mental models about how we are to one another, and so this through a focus on social system and considering long-term community success. The psychology of redistribution rests on 4 interrelated attitudes that redefine success and fairness. So firstly, community orientation, characterized by the meaning that, as Fisk 1992 describes, we remember that value is relational and not individual. Humans are wired for cooperation. Then, secondly, fairness and reciprocity. So fairness rebuilds trust. When inequality feels unjust, people disengage, and reciprocity restores belongings. Then, third, sufficient mindset. So enough for all, replace more for me. Resource links sufficient with well-being and ecological balance. And then, fourthly, future orientation. So every decision today shapes tomorrow. And so our redistribution mindset extends responsibility across generation, which can be linked with the sustainability definition, as we need to meet our needs and future generations' needs. And so community builds fairness enables sufficiency, and sufficiency protects the future. And so together they form psychology of redistribution. Now, having understood the psychological perspective, let's move into the sociological section. Sociology explains how this inner attitude become collective practice. At the top, essential meaning. So wealth and success gain new meaning, not as ownership, but as shared stewardship. Then in the middle, material, so system and structure. So participatory budgeting, cooperative ownership, and transparent profit sharing turns fairness into design. And then at the base, dialogue, facilitation, transparency are the social competency that keep the loop working. And so when our meaning, system, and skills align, redistribution stops being an idea and becomes everyday practice. And so to conclude, redistribution isn't charity, but a design for trust, a way of thinking and acting that keeps value in motion.
Now that we have explored psychology and sociology behind redistribution, let's see how they actually work together, how inner mindsets connect to social systems to make redistribution a living practice. The shift from accumulation to redistribution doesn't happen only through policies or reforms, but it also happens through interaction between how people think and how communities are structured. So psychologically, individuals begin to value fairness, empathy, and collective well-being over competition and personal gain. And these inner attitudes motivates people to share, to participate, and to trust others. Sociologically, our institution responds by creating systems that reward cooperation, for example, shared ownership models, participatory budgeting, or profit-sharing structures. These systems transform redistributive values into everyday norms. When the two levels alike, when people's motivation match the social rules around them, redistribution stops being an abstract ideal and becomes a social habit. As conclusion, what emerges is a circular dynamic, a feedback loop. Shared values lead to fair behavior, strengthens community trust, and that trust reinforces our shared values again. In this way, redistribution is not just a policy, but it becomes a culture, a regenerative system that keeps value in motion.
So far we learned what redistribution means, but how do we move from theory to real practice? And that's what we're going to see right now. You need to imagine it as a three-step shift. So the first one would be rethink, redesign, and then the third one, realign behavior. So for the first one, rethink values, what does success look like beyond profit and accumulation? In fact, mindset success means collective well-being, where growth is measured by knowledge sharing and ecological balance with the society, and not only by how much one person owns. This step begins with awareness, seeing inequality as a design flaw and not as a natural result or effort of the society. The second part is design systems. So redistribution isn't charity structures. Managers can implement it through several tools, such as participatory budgeting or profit-sharing models. Communities can support cooperative and local circular economies to keep value in motion. Finally, the third point will be real-time behavior. That means practicing reciprocity every day, credit sharing, and more tutoring more than just competing with the other employee of the company. Leadership here becomes facilitation more than control.